Our solar system, an image we all know well. Something you might not know about it, however, is that this is the solar system that J.R.R. Tolkien drew from for inspiration for the solar system in his Lord of the Rings universe. This here is an admittedly simple yet useful image representing Earth's history. In Tolkien's version of our universe, the ring was destroyed at the end of the Return of the King about 6,000 years ago. So here, or here, or here, about. So as far as the celestial bodies go, he essentially just renamed them. We are going to be focusing on Anar, his sun, Isel, his moon, and Arda, his earth. This is the classic, well-known map of Middle-earth, including all that was involved in the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stories. Take note of this coastline, because we'll be seeing it again soon in a different orientation. The stories focus on the Shire, where our protagonists are from. However, being the nerd that he was, Tolkien didn't just make the map relevant to his stories, but extended it into an entire planet. If we zoom out a little bit, we get this, the second most famous Tolkien map, which includes Middle-earth, the continent on which the stories take place, as well as Aman, or the Undying Lands. All other maps of Arda were created by fans, piecing together what Tolkien said throughout all of his works. The following world maps show the continental shifts since Arda's creation, not unlike our Pangaea. Note, these are drawn as though by those living in the place at the time. Which of course means we will forgive their imperfections, seeing as humans have not always done a bang-up job with cartography themselves. At all. But back to Arda. Just as Earth has a multi-layered atmosphere, as does Arda. Here we see the Vista, sphere of air, Theia, ether, Illuminbar, or walls of the world, and Kuma, the void. Again, these maps were created as though by the people of Middle-earth to preserve the integrity of the story, so we're gonna forgive the fact that the sun is in the atmosphere. However, something correct about the sun can be seen here, with the doors of night, and again, with the gates of morning. We like to call this the Circle of Illumination, or, to be more dramatic, the Twilight Zone. Back to this map. Remember how this is all that's mentioned in all of the Lord of the Rings stories? And yet down here we see something called the Girdle of Arda. Girdle as in belt. So what wraps around the center of our Earth? The equator. Meaning all the shenanigans that goes down in The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings takes place in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the Northern Hemisphere, the further north you go, the colder it gets. Obviously, the same goes for us. And in the north, a long time ago, the Bering Strait was covered by something called Beringia, a land or ice bridge. Tolkien called Arda's version Hail Karakse, or the grinding ice. Just as with Beringia, the grinding ice was responsible for a great migration across two continents that were otherwise not connected. It was Melkor and Ungoliant who first crossed, in year 1495 of the Years of the Trees. Of course, the more notable migration occurred in 1500 of the same age, when Fingolfin led his people across. Let's talk climate pertaining to the parts of Middle-earth more well known. Anyone who's read the books or seen the films knows that the climate in and around the Shire is much different than that of Mordor and other places around Middle-earth. And the reasons are just the same as they are for us. This weather map shows the average temperatures across Middle-earth in degrees Celsius. Notice the downward reach of the isotherms along the Misty Mountains. The temperature decreases at the peak of the mountains due to the dramatic change in elevation. This accounts for the Fellowship's toil when they try to cross the Misty Mountains at the pass of Carithros. This map, made by the same scientists at the University of Bristol who made the temperature map, shows us wind patterns and mid-atmospheric pressures. Notice how the isobars often hug mountain ranges, such as the White Mountains and the Mountains of Shadow. This, in turn, affects precipitation. Take note of the Misty Mountains and the lack of precipitation on the Gladden Fields in Rovanian just to the east of them. This is called a rain shadow. Now, Tolkien is a product of Europe, specifically England, and we can see a lot of this culture reflected throughout his stories. In fact, the latitude of the Shire is equal to that of Oxford, England. Tolkien was a student and later professor at the University of Oxford, which is likely the source of this bias. Once again, for reference, here is the Shire. About 600 miles south of the Shire, at the foot of the White Mountains, lies Minas Tirith, the capital of the realm of Gondor. Minas Tirith shares a latitudinal value with Florence, Italy, given that this conic projection of Europe was overlaid one of Middle-earth. Here we have the Shire at Oxford and Minas Tirith at Florence. Clearly, Tolkien put a great deal of thought into the creation of this universe.